The Curse, episode 6. We're chatting about it. So this week was kind of a short episode, wasn't it? Like 38 minutes or so. Perhaps the shortest episode of the season so far, but we did get some good stuff. Some character development. We basically got to see a little bit more of Whitney's narcissism when she and Dougie get to discussing the trajectory of the show, and then maybe focus more on Whitney herself, her character for the show, for the flip philanthropy show they're making, reality show. We got Asher, also a little bit perhaps too preoccupied still with the chicken situation. And that goes to some odd places. But yeah, good show, good stuff. Really, really interested to see where these characters go. Not just the performances by both Emma Stone and Nathan Fielder here, and Benny Safdie as Dougie, but just the writing, whether it's half improvised or not. Really, really interesting stuff. Let's get down to the breakdown. Get down to the breakdown. Get to it, and let's get through it beat by beat. So there will be spoilers. I guess we'll put on that spoiler tag. Why not? There it is. Okay, so let's break it down. Episode 6. We got the opening here is basically just the opening title scene for their show within the show, right? Philanthropy. And it starts off with a full 16:9 aspect ratio to indicate this is the reality show, right? This is not the actually the show. It's the show within the show. And so here we have Whitney and Asher going with this couple here that they found in the previous episode, giving them the key to the house, and they're discussing what this little amulet means. Pretty much like it's a snake with some rocks, some gems, some stones that are from the tribes people that live here, right? Was it the Dani tribe? And it symbolizes rebirth, etc., etc. A lot of platitudes, and you could see this as kind of like a bit of appropriation of the people who come to live here, appropriating the art of the tribes people here, the indigenous here. And it's all a little bit, typical, not quite authentic reality TV style here, right? It seems, later Whitney's like, it's kind of lifeless because what they're doing is they're actually watching the show right here, right? And they're evaluating it. They're like, okay, let's see how it looks. It's basically what Whitney asked for, right? Dougie's like, this is what you asked for, and she's visually like, okay, something's off here. What is off? Well, it looks freaking fake, But like most reality TV shows, like this couple invited them over for dinner just because they saw them there, painting, providing for the community by helping out with painting this building here. And you can kind of tell like he hasn't really painted before, done some kind of this type of labor, I guess, because he's like, oh, I didn't know that it dries quicker with a roll instead of a paintbrush. But apparently, yeah, they're like, oh, just come on over and have some dinner with us and be part of the community. I guess the idea is to show them, hey, look, they're welcomed here. It's okay. They're not like elitist gentrifiers. They're good people, and this show is good. That's the idea, right? And that's what Whitney wanted to show, but of course, it comes off as just kind of unauthentic and stale, right? She says it just feels lifeless or something. And hold on, and then basically she wants to change it up. She wants something different. She's asking for Dougie's help here. Dougie's like, okay, fine, I'll give you my help. But beforehand, you didn't want my help. You thought, she didn't really, she kind of dismissed Dougie, and now at this point she's like, okay, I guess I do kind of need his, even though he's kind of a little bit despicable of a person, personality wise. He has some good insight when it comes to producing shows that perhaps people are interested in. So he's like, say my name 3 times, like Beetlejuice. She does it. It's kind of annoying way to go about it, but that's how Dougie is, right? So basically, he is like, well, let's switch the focus. The focus on Asher and Whitney. Those are the people really at the center of the show, right? Let's get some drama out of there. If we can't really talk about, the politics, the displacement, the race issues that the show presents, let's get into the personal hangups of the 2 leads in this show, right? And so she points out how she feels like she gives him a side eye, right? When Asher picks up the vase here with his phone in his hand, and he's like, what's this all about? And of course she's annoyed that, like, oh, why can't he just get rid of the phone for a second while we're doing the show? Like, it's a bit clumsy, and he's not attentive enough to really care about the show if he has his phone in his hand the whole time. And so Dougie's like, okay, let's do a little quick shot here of you, kind of like a confessional, what you see in like reality TV all the time, right? Like it cuts to the person sitting down, a talking heads sequence, discussing the matter at hand, right? To give some context. And a quick little edit here, and I'm like, oh, actually this kind of makes it more interesting now. And he's actually, senses that there's something she's hiding, right? Perhaps her insecurities about her parents. She doesn't want to be associated with them. She's defensive. But he's saying we don't have to focus on that. We can focus on your relationship with Asher. No need. That way people can see some, that frustration between them, that people can relate to that instead, and then something honest will come out of that. That's the whole idea. Of course, it's all manufactured, and they decide not to tell Asher about this, and it seems like it's going to be just focused on Whitney's perspective and her, reaction to all this. And she's actually kind of into it. So this kind of shows, okay, like we're seeing a little bit more, Whitney, her narcissism, the idea that she wants this show to be for the community, but also it's mostly about her, right? It's like she wants to portray herself in the best light, and she's kind of digging this idea of like, oh yeah, let's have this show kind of center on me. I'm the one who's like providing people with these homes. I'm the one who's really making a difference here, right? Why not? And people liked me in the test screenings, right? I think she asked him about Kara because in the previous episode she did notice that they were getting along. Kara, the artist friend, air quotes friend, that Whitney has, and he dismisses her by calling her ugly, which isn't a shitty thing to do. Of course she isn't, but he says it's because of the smoking, really. And he doesn't quite elaborate. He's like, never mind. He says nothing, but it indicates that he doesn't want. I guess maybe he thinks that a smoke addict is gonna likely die early in life, and so he doesn't want to get close to someone like that, or doesn't want to like get in a relationship with someone like that, because he does have a fear of death, I think, ever since the accident with I guess, the incident with his drunk driving, killing his girlfriend at the time, right? Or was it his wife? I always forget. Um, and then she comes up with this. She asked this idea, like, oh, she's like, what if we change the name of the show? Because Flip Philanthropy does sound like a show you would probably watch on the HGTV. House Flipping, I think, is one of their shows they call. They're all about flipping, but of course, Whitney's like, we're not really flipping. We're like tearing it down and rebuilding a whole new house. You know, it's not really. She said it's like flipping is so low rent. She doesn't like the idea of the connotation, right? And the TV network, of course, likes that title, so they probably won't want to change it. But she comes up with this name. How about Green Queen? Again, focusing it on herself. She's the queen. She's the Green Queen, and it and Dougie likes it because it kind of elevates the show to a different category, more of what he's interested in, which is the perspective of Whitney and her character as she's trying to navigate, you know, making these homes and selling them to this community and being, you know, this liberal ally who wants to better the world with eco-friendly homes, you know, and improve this community. So he sees that as a good through point for the show that will actually he would actually like feel good about making that show, in the sense of like it'll have the drama and it'll captivate people in the way that Flipanthropy, how Whitney was seeing it, won't, you know. And so at this point, like now, Whitney and Doug are kind of, you know, getting closer, and I think Whitney sees the benefit of getting on Dougie's good side and also like working with him, you know, to make this the best show they can, you know, right? She kind of laughs at the idea of like, oh, like if I'm the queen, you know, Dougie's like, well, if you're the queen, then then Asher would be the village idiot, you know. So kind of like, again, putting a wedge in this relationship a little bit, the idea that you know, that Asher and Whitney are kind of incompatible, or you know, Asher's kind of like out of his league with Whitney, and Whitney, and you kind of get the idea that, yeah, Whitney may think that, you know, that, oh yeah, maybe she could probably do better, but she does find, you know, you would suspect that she finds Asher useful for her endeavors, and it allows her to kind of lead this operation, right? And he can provide some of the business acumen or whatever he has. And so he's just shopping around for you know, I'm assuming to work on the house from the Curse family. And he bumps into his old friend from the casino, who actively ignores him, right? He calls him out, you know, he's like, oh, hey, how's it going? And he actually, and this is a great little twist here, because, like, you know, you expect the friend to respond, and then immediately Asher's like, oh shit, like, why is he not even acknowledging me? And you get this foreboding, like, menacing, I think even the score is a little bit dark in here, right? Feeling of like, oh shit, something's going up. It feels something is odd. But basically it's just that the friend is not really interested in Asher, right? Asher is not like the friendly type of guy he thinks he is. He's not someone perhaps that people were really into. You know, we saw that in the focus group. You know, they didn't think he was funny, and now he's maybe realizing, oh shit, like, even these people that I thought were my friends or friendly coworkers, they actually maybe they're not into me. But he has, but because he's a bit self-centered, like, he's not fully grasping that, right? I think he's kind of looking for alternative, another reason why wondering why is he ignoring me, And any reasonable person would be like, oh yeah, he just wants to be an acquaintance, he doesn't really want to be buddy buddy with him, right? But his reaction, his face is a bit menacing, right? It's a bit like, is he gonna seek some kind of revenge? Is he gonna try to like show that, hey, like, you're not, if you don't want to be friends with me, you're losing out, Is he gonna do something about it? I don't know. But again, it's obvious that, like, Asher's whole thing through in the show, his character arc is kind of like trying to compensate for his lack of charisma, his lack of humor, etc. And he wants to prove to the world, to Whitney, to everybody, that he is worthy, and that he's a cool, funny guy, Of course, remember, he spilt, he's a little bit unaware of his actions. Like, he spilt that Powerade or the Gatorade on his friend there, just so he can get into the computer system, right? And like, at the time, I think he laughed it off a little bit, but you get the sense that, yeah, like, he probably didn't appreciate that, right? And he and this friend here, so-called, or previous coworker, like he doesn't really, he saw through it, right? He doesn't really feel like Asher's a good guy, really, And we get a cool little transition here again. I just love these little transitions, and it makes the show a little bit more dreamy, a little bit more nightmarish. The warping of the face here. It makes it more unsettling. With the music and everything, just some good stuff. And then we have, another little intro for their next episode, I guess, of the show. Or maybe they're continuing it, but they're at their firehouse. I guess it's probably another episode of the Philanthropy show. At the firehouse, I guess they installed some solar panels and stuff, and different environmentally friendly systems, which will come up in a bit in the firehouse. And so, of course, Dougie here wants some more conflict, some more drama. So he wants some more sexual tension to be apparent in this scene, right? With the firemen here, with this guy, he wants him to like give Whitney the eye and like kind of flirt with her a bit, perhaps to get something out of Dougie. Sorry, out of Asher. And he's like, oh, he doesn't have his wedding ring on because, of course, he's working, right? He doesn't want to have this fireman dude, and because he's a bit uncomfortable, flirting with Whitney because he has a wife, But of course, Dougie's like, no, it doesn't matter. I guess he's like, it's just a TV show, and I guess he could explain to his wife, oh, it's just part of the reality TV show situation. And then we get Asher going to the bathroom here. So here we get a quick cut of it immediately cuts, we won't really show it, but to Asher, urinating, and we actually see, again, his little penis urinating. I guess, which makes sense because the whole sequence before that is about, Dougie wanting to challenge Asher, in the way that he wanted that fireman to flirt with Whitney, right? Because of course Asher's, as I said before, is trying to compensate, is insecure about his position with Whitney, and so introducing that little, it makes sense. It's like, yeah, let's remember that, yeah, this guy has a little dick, and he's insecure about it, insecure about himself. And so then he finds a bunch of chicken on the sink here. Just a little weird, I wasn't quite sure what that was when we first take a look at it, right? It just looks like a pile of something. I thought, is it some kind of special dried foam or something that firemen use? I don't know. But it is just apparently some chicken, dried out chicken or something, or not even, I think, raw chicken almost. Although, yeah, it's not quite clear. Probably like thawed frozen chicken strips or something. And so he's like, what is that? Of course in his head he's like, oh, is this related to the curse girl? He confronts Dougie. He's like, yeah, I know you put that chicken in the bathroom. You're playing a joke on me. Dougie denies it. And I think they kind of just brush it off. And he's like, oh, Asher brings up the idea of like, oh, like, you had chicken in your fridge the other day. And Dougie's like, oh, well, it must be me because I had chicken. Haha. Like, you're just being paranoid and weird. Like, it's just coincidental that I had chicken before. And of course, Asher's still on the chicken, and he's still thinking about that. He doesn't even acknowledge or even notice the whole flirtation going on and how Whitney's playing into it, for the camera. And it's his confused, facial expressions are because of that, but that still works for the show, right? And so Dougie's into it. It's like, yeah, it works out, and so here they're kind of like Whitney and Dougie, kind of like how Dougie and Kara were kind of getting close last episode. Now Whitney's and Dougie are getting close here. And even though, they kind of they're at odds at certain points, they're not in complete agreement with each other, but, they are working together. And I guess Whitney wants to know what Dougie and Kara were talking about, sees their text. Dougie teases Whitney, saying that Kara and Dougie were teasing Whitney in the text, but not really. And I guess she called her a bitch when they were fighting or something. But I guess that the key thing here is that Kara shared this image of this racist figure of this Native American, and Dougie thinks it's he's like, oh, he mentions that, oh, it's funny, but it's racist, it's still racist. So he kind of like doesn't really completely comprehend or buy into the idea that this shouldn't be, that the statue shouldn't even be displayed like that, because he still finds it a little bit funny. While Whitney, of course, like, dude, they should take it down. And then, so I guess like Whitney was trying to gauge and see, what does Kara see in Dougie? Why was Kara so interested in Dougie and chatting with him and having a good time, right? Like, so she wants to, in that way that she can maybe befriend Kara better and bond with Kara by talking about Dougie, perhaps. We'll see later. She texts Kara later on. So Asher, of course, is still in the chicken situation, like trying to figure out, some more comedy here. Figure out, if the cook of the firehouse was making chicken recently. Like, he's asking about the menu for a day, the previous day, trying to figure out, did they have chicken, and why would the chicken be in the sink? So he brings it up, semi-casually in his awkward way. And then this guy, who's apparently the cook, I guess he's like, oh, like you say there's chicken in the sink or in the bathroom. He didn't say sink, he said bathroom. And so I think he calls out this other dude who I guess maybe likes chicken or something. And I think this is a bit hard to understand. He says no pollo in the potty, and pollo is chicken, and potty as in the toilet perhaps. And so maybe he assumed that Asher was saying that he saw some poop in the toilet that wasn't flushed or something. I don't know. I'm not quite clear. But he doesn't get the answer he wanted. But then they realize, I think, oh, but it's the same guy, right? And so this guy goes in and he's like, oh, that wasn't there an hour ago. And he doesn't quite know how it got there, what that's about, So now he's gonna look at the security footage, So now it's like, some kind of heist movie. We're looking at the security footage, see who walked in the bathroom at that time. Really intent on it, like he's really focused on this, even though they're in the middle of making the show. That's should be more important. He shouldn't be focusing on this chicken thing, which is a silly little incident. But that's his personality, then that's his character. And Whitney comes in and is like, hey, we gotta shoot. And he's like, well, if you don't need me, you don't need me, right? And then Whitney kind of takes advantage of that. It's like, oh, I guess I don't need you. We don't need you for this shot. And what she sees as him being, just kind of unconcerned with the show as much as she is, she probably sees that as kind of a benefit, right? Because if the show is going to be about her, then that's fine. It's not some. It doesn't matter that he's not in it as much. So that kind of feeds into her idea of like being the Green Queen, right? And so here she texts Kara, like, I did read these texts, we could go through it, but it's not too important what they're going through here. So Kara's like, I'll have to check them out. Probably talking about some artist or something. You should. Rennie says you have to clear a day for it because it's a real rabbit hole. So it's not quite clear what they're talking about. Could be an internet rabbit hole, could be, maybe we'll find out later. Haha, okay, she says. Apparently they did a solo project in New York, but I can't find photos of them online. So is she talking about, is this about like the artist who, in the first episode I think, the artist who did those houses with the mirrored walls? She might be talking about them, might be talking about some other artist. But she can't find them online. She did find the photos online from the other artists in the previous episode, so it's probably not them. Let me try to find the article. Someone wrote about it. Could this be relating to that racist indigenous native figure that Dougie had on his phone? I don't know. I don't think so. It could be something unrelated. Either way, she starts a different conversation. She wants to, again, connect with Kara, and perhaps she feels like she could connect with her by talking about Dougie, right? So she's like, ask her if Dougie showed her the bird victim dating show we saw in the first episode, right? About the dating show where it's revealed that the bachelor is a burn victim. And she says, oh, it's hilarious. So she's like wondering, okay, is Kara gonna find it hilarious, this show? And she bets that she will. That way she can connect with Kara more, hopefully. But you can see that she's kind of not so sure, but she does it. She says that in the text. And so we'll see if Kara responds positively or not. And maybe this is all setting up something in the future between a future scene between Kara, Whitney, and Dougie. And it seems that Dougie, even though he has an abrasive personality, can still has a charm that can a charisma to him that allows him to connect with people, in certain ways, and So that's probably how he got to the position he is right now. His that's probably some of his networking skills in action, right? So of course Asher's still trying to figure it out. He sees that Dougie comes in, but he doesn't quite go into the bathroom. This other girl, who I think is this one of the production assistants for the show? She goes in. He suspects that she handed him something right here. It's hard to make out because his back is turned to the camera, but it looks like nothing really happened there. It looks like it was just like, I imagine that chicken was just there for some reason. Someone left chicken there while they were preparing the meal or something. It's unclear, but would Dougie really do that? But of course, Asher's fixated on it. He has to find the practical reason for it. He has to find it. That's part of like a theme of the show, of his character too. Like, he's always on the lookout for a realistic, practical reason for any odd coincidence. He doesn't really want to believe that there's some supernatural elements here, and that perhaps that could be to his detriment in the future episodes. Who knows? It seems that he will, and we do see that he does get physically injured later on. At the end of this episode, we will get to. But the power goes out because it happens because he says the whole new solar system, the solar panels or whatever system they hooked up to power up the firehouse, right? And so it's because of that these outages have been happening. So they haven't been working real well for them. Perhaps the installation was faulty. Perhaps the whole system just doesn't work for what they need. And Asher doesn't really. He's like, he doesn't really acknowledge it too much. Doesn't care about it. He's still thinking about this chicken, which again is like, it's not that important. Hey, like, the reason you're making the show and is to improve the community and to provide these environmentally friendly technologies to help people live more sustainably, and yet that doesn't really matter to him. So it's a bit of ironic there. And then we have a little funny section of this fireman talking about a baby box. I wonder if this is actually real. I wouldn't be surprised if this is actually real, but I guess kind of like building on the trope, the idea that young mothers leaving their babies at firehouses. You see that in movies and TV all the time, in stories. I do wonder how realistic that is and how often that happens. But this guy's idea is that, let's give mothers other options, and we'll leave this box here so they can put the baby in there, and then they'll go pick up the baby from there. Of course, Whitney doesn't think it's that interesting to her. She wants to move on. It's like, let's go look at the weight room, And of course, he's really proud of it. He's like, he really wants to show us off, and he thinks it's a good thing. Dougie comes in, schmoozing, like, oh yeah, it looks cool, great air holes, very nice, but really just wants to get a shot of some guy shirtless for the show, because that would, be good for the show, for the spectacle of the show. Like, let's have some hot firemen with their shirts off. Sex appeal, sex sells, etc. And he's asking this guy to ask another guy to take his shirt off. And then we transition to this, which I found to be really disturbing. Like, it's hard even to watch right now, like, going through this. But we got the father here of that girl getting doing a session here with the chiropractor. to help out with his back because he had some back pain earlier on in the few episodes ago, right? And Asher brought him some pain reliever pills or something, and then we saw that Whitney, was at this chiropractor, and she asked to pay for an appointment for another person who doesn't have insurance, which is this guy, right? So, so he goes in here, and it's disturbing because, first of all, he's a poor guy, doesn't have insurance. He's been taken advantage of his whole life, most likely, like exploited, etc., and we have this dude here is like commanding or dictating the situation. Okay, you'll be fine. I'm just, this might, you might think it hurts, but you're gonna be fine. And he's like wanting it to stop, so it comes close to the idea. It feels like he's almost assaulting this guy in a way, because he's saying stop, I don't want, it hurts, but he continues, and we get this cracking noises, and just like you see that he's visibly uncomfortable, and it just feels so horrible and like almost horror like, and in the first second it's like, wait, did he just break his neck there? And it doesn't seem like it. Of course, the chiropractor probably has gone through a lot of patients like this who may be reluctant, and I assume that it could be a scary situation, and actually, like, I don't know too much about, I can't speak too much about chiropractor or any this type of care, but I do know that I think my dad, some time ago, when I think I was like a kid or something, my dad went to someone who did this, and I remember being scared that they would break him or something, or break his bones. I don't know, because I remember him like kind of like making some noises of pain or something, but then he said that it was fine, like it was just part of it or something, and that so I think to a certain extent this is just like what happens in chiropractors offices. Like some patients probably are more scared than they should be, and like, but I don't know, just how this is shot. It just feels like he's being like assaulted or not. He's not being listened to. And is that representative of just what's happening to this community? People coming in, whether it's that chiropractor or Asher and Whitney, these other people who are buying these homes, they're coming in and saying like, oh look, we can better your life. We can do things that will improve the community, help you live a eco-friendly life, etc., but really they're causing harm. Is that the idea behind that scene? And they're not like really, paying attention to what the people who live here are really going through or really want. But that was just disturbing. So I guess I'm kind of relieved to get away from that scene and get back to Asher being kind of a doofus here, right? So he's working on the house. It's from the outside it feels a little bit weird that he keeps trying to I guess befriend this little girl here, but he wants to kind of make sure that either the curse is lifted, or that, like, just to prove to himself that this curse thing is just silly superstition and it doesn't really add up to anything. It does not really, there's no supernatural curse that's like haunting him, like that she put upon him. It's just like frivolous, stupid things, child things, TikTok trends. So he's like wants to test out to see, like, okay, let's make sure this girl isn't like some little girl with a shining power or something, some kind of supernatural power. So he's like ask her if there, to see how many nails he puts under the bucket, right? To see if she can guess accurately, and she does twice in a row. She's like, oh yeah, you have three, and then you have two. he's like probably thinking in his head, okay, that's just a coincidence. You know, how much do I have in my hand? And he's like, just 2, right? And then he's like, okay, I gotta make this more difficult. Okay, let's back up a little bit. So he decides to pick up a whole bunch of nails, right? He gets like 20 nails in his palm or something. I don't know. And like that much. And there's no way she's gonna be able to accurately count, and he's gonna have to count himself afterwards too, apparently, right? There's no way she's gonna get this right this time. He's so intent on this that he doesn't even notice that he's bleeding, right? He like squeezed too hard. And it's such a like awkward scene here, right? Awkward little thing to do that just, it's just, that's who Asher is. He like goes to this extent to clear up any like, any notion that like, that this world is supernatural, or that he doesn't have some control over it, or he can't, so basically she gets scared, of course, because she sees him bleeding. He's unaware of how he appears to people. He probably thinks he's like just being a quirky uncle type, but he's actually scaring her, and he's like, oh, sorry. He goes to wash his hand and kind of realizes, oh, he kind of fucked up a little bit, but just a bit of a scratch. He actually poked it in. You can actually see the nail in his skin there. He pulls it out. Some good effects there, practical effects. And then of course the girl's scared and she's sorry. She feels bad for I guess playing the game wrong, and maybe she still feels bad about the curse thing. We'll be giving him a little curse, a tiny curse. And here we see Asher does have, he does have some humanity. He does have empathy. He does feel bad a little bit here. And he's like, okay, don't feel bad. It's not your fault. I'll be okay. But again, he's, it just shows that he's unaware of the consequences of his actions. He's trying to like dispel the idea of that the curse being real, and he ends up, scaring the little girl. And that's the end of the show. So it's the episode. So yeah, it was a shorter episode. Less than 40 minutes. I think most episodes have been around an hour. It definitely left me wanting more. I did feel like, oh shit, like because of the length, I wanted to keep watching. I wanted the next episode right away, but we're gonna have to wait a week. But yeah, like I said, this is a good episode. Nothing like super major happened, just mostly more development, more insight on Asher and Whitney's characters, building upon building upon their character arc and who they are as people, right? And probably teasing what's going to come to the future. One thing I forgot to mention was that Whitney gets a message at the firehouse on her phone that her credit card was being used, because in the previous episode we saw that she was like, okay, let's not call the police when people steal the jeans at her store, and she gave the credit card info to the clerk there, so that she can charge her credit card if someone happens to steal again, instead of calling the police, which is ideally, like, it seems like a good thing, right? But of course, it seems to indicate that they're probably going to take advantage of that, and that clerk is probably going to, or the people who work there are probably going to take some of those clothes, and they're maybe tell their friends about it, etc., or probably even just use that money to buy other things, right? Use the credit card. And Whitney doesn't really um, think of it as a big deal because she, I guess, doesn't think someone would take advantage of her that way. I think here's where she gets that message. So I guess it's a little bit of foreshadowing of like, okay, well, what is that going to lead to? There's going to be definitely going to be some conflict later on where she's going to be charged a lot of money in her credit card, and and she's got to confront them, and then maybe like some of the people, maybe the worker there isn't being paid enough, and so she feels more justified of taking that money, and then she realizes that like, then that does basically challenge her idea of like of being a good girl boss or not, right? So we'll see where that leads to, but we definitely get a clear view of like Whitney leaning into the idea of her being the protagonist of this story, this reality TV show, and being the center of it, to kind of rehabilitate or her image as someone who's not just like this rich daughter of these landlords who are abusive. She wants to separate herself from from her family and be seen as one of the good guys, while Asher is still trying to prove to the world that prove to the world and Whitney that he is he's a good husband, he's a good funny person and likable person, while also being fixated on this curse thing, without really putting his attention where it's needed, which is this business that they're doing with the houses, and actually being a beacon and a good people for the community, and then the fallout of their actions will probably be bad for this girl and her family. We will see how it goes. But yeah, that's episode 6. We're getting closer to the end. We're in the second half. We'll see where Dougie ends up in this whole situation. Will the show become a success now that they're pivoting and focusing more on Whitney's relationship with Asher, etc. for the show? It'd be, will they actually change the name to Green Queen? I don't know, but that's it. That's the show. All right, see ya next week, folks. That's The Curse, episode 6.